I don't see a big deal here. It's little pinch points, all it is.
Okay, everything's ready.
Ready? Okay, I'd like to call the City of Washington Board of Appeals meeting to order. Jamie, you do roll call?
Tim Frankenberg,
Present.
Mark Kleesner,
Here.
Brian Gentges,
Here.
Kurt Unnerstall,
Here.
Michael Smith,
Here.
Ivan Bushman.
Here.
Okay, let's stand and have the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, I need a motion, I guess, to approve the minutes from the November 13th, 2017 PEX piping for 505 West Fifth Street.
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, new business, fire code modification request for 6244 Highway 100, 20-foot wide fire access lane instead of a required 26-foot fire access lane. I think, John, you wanted to speak
Correct.
first? Okay.
Yes. I will sit right here just because I don't have a clicker for some of the PDFs, if that's all right with everybody.
Okay.
But good afternoon. Within your packet, I did provide a cover letter that tried my best to outline essentially the different sections of code which we feel as staff applies to this request. And we can go through each individual one of those. Hopefully you received that packet. But essentially, this is the subject property. It's located at the beginning of, High Street. High Street extension is going to the south. Just for everybody who knows, Casey's convenience store / gas station is being constructed right here. So I think everyone's familiar. This is Modern Auto. That's the current building as it exists today. It is a single-story wood frame construction. It does have currently access drives on both the east and the west side. I believe they are 14 feet. 16 feet. Okay, they're 16 feet wide currently today with parking on both sides. The applicant submitted plans to site plan review, which is essentially all departments within the city, wastewater, myself, building department, fire department, meet every Thursday to discuss layouts, as it pertains to fire access, zoning, things of that nature. So they were submitted to us. We gave them comments back that by doing the proposed addition, which I will pull up here, they are proposing an addition on the western side of that building. It's approximately 100-foot long addition, 11,573 square foot. By proposing that addition, that triggers the need to review fire access, and we can go through kind of how we came up with that. But this is the layout that was presented to us. So if you have any questions on that, I'd be more than happy to answer, but otherwise I'll continue. So by doing so, that triggered the review of fire access. You're adding on to an additional building. It would be on the same lot that existed prior to, so we believe that does trigger the review of fire access. We believe that the plan submitted has essentially two dead-end fire access fire apparatus access roads. So you would essentially enter the site off High Street, turn east down this ingress-egress easement, which does exceed 26 feet, and you essentially have one fire access road here to service the entire south side of the building and a portion potentially of the north side. You also then have another fire access road potential that could be here. So you have two dead-end fire access roads. Now, you would say that there is a piece of pavement through here, which I believe the applicant will address. But the plan submitted has two dead-end fire access roads in excess of 150 feet. So if you come in here, this one is in excess of 150 feet. This second one, fire access road, we'll call it B, is in excess of 150 feet. That automatically requires either two dead-end fire apparatus access roads with turnarounds in accordance with section D103.4, which provides any designer or any applicant or any developer different options of approved turnarounds. So a 96-foot cul-de-sac, a hammerhead turnaround, things of that nature. You can do that, or you have to provide a total, a connection of those two access roads. So you wouldn't need to turn around because it's connecting the two. So I think that makes some sense. So in doing so, Ordinance 171789 clearly indicates that the minimum width of a fire access road is 26 feet. That is what the ordinance states. I don't have any other information to you, but that ordinance was, and Chief Almec is here, but I was not here when that was passed, but that ordinance was updated with the new building codes that are in effect at the end of 2017. There is an amendment in those building codes. So the International Fire Code does have 20 feet, but there has been an amendment to increase those to 26, and we will have probably additional information to that. But irregardless, 26 foot is the width of a fire apparatus access road. And then I just added, in addition, there appears there could be some alternates with the proposed layout. So I didn't give you any alternates. I did not think that that was my place to do that. But there are some different ways to work, we believe, within the code. So I just wanted to provide that to you. Not sure what else. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions, but really the summary that I have is there are two fire apparatus access roads to meet the fire code A, B, and by doing so, if they do not loop those with a fire apparatus access road, they have to provide a turnaround, and this plan does not provide that turnaround. So, if any questions, I can answer them. And we can definitely go into more detail of how we came up with that conclusion.
John, quick question. When was this phase built? And at the time when this built, what was the fire lane width ordinance at the time that was?
We were looking that up. Rick would probably, 2003 was when it was constructed? There you go, 2003. And I believe that the fire code that was in effect was the Boca, yeah, there you go. So,
03. It was,
hey, Bill, yeah, just, yeah.
if it was built in 03, it was 3 cycles ago, would have been under the Boca code. We've had a 26-foot fire lane for the last 2 cycles.
Do we know what the fire width was required?
It would have been
at the time?
20 feet.
20 feet?
Correct.
20 feet then?
It used to be 18 before that.
Okay.
National has changed progressively over time because of size of apparatus and complexity of the buildings.
So to summarize your question, answer, the existing building had a 20-foot fire lane, and we believe that by doing this addition, by changing the configuration, essentially, that it needs to be brought up to compliance.
So the current one is 16, and the code then called for 20?
The current,
I know what current is. When it was built, under the 93 Boca, it was calling for a what size?
Boca was 18, and the last
Size is it
version,
now- And what size is it now?
you said built in 2003?
this
we were on
lane
Boca.
over here is 16 foot wide.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Did that answer your question?
Yes.
yeah.
I have a question on the building when it was built back in '03. What was this thing? Did it have to have truck access on both sides at that time? Or is it small enough it could come
No,
into one?
that's new, that began with the International Fire Code. Everybody's updated now, but back then.
Right.
The 150-foot parameter came in with the International Code
Okay,
10 plus years ago, 15.
correct. Okay, I was just curious.
Yeah.
I know Washington was, back then was 99 Boca or whatever. I didn't know off the top of my head if that, because it doesn't look like it would have had, it doesn't look like it was code required to have access on both sides just by the layout. So that was my
No.
question. Okay.
Even though the original building is 153 feet, the 150-foot parameter was not in the oldest version that we were dealing with, the Boca.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
So he was compliant at the time he built based on the old 99 code?
Yes.
Okay.
The existing building.
Existing building?
Existing building.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
but- and now that's what we're looking at is because you're adding another 100 foot. Now we're talking deploying fire apparatus on a 253-foot building.
So, Chief, you're recommending that this is denied from
Yes,
this
sir.
letter?
I can elaborate on that, but I'm just asking questions, or answering questions right now, but yes.
If you have something to elaborate on, I'd like to hear it.
You want me to do that now?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, what we're looking at and to give you some of the rationale, the 20 versus 26. 26 foot is, for this case, is for a 253-foot building, unprotected, we call it wood frame. And the Citizens Committee 2 cycles ago, with the adoption of the 09, changed the fire code requirement, and it had talked about 20-foot fire lanes and where there's hydrants 26 feet. There's 2 key influences to that. But I want the board to remember, first off, is that a key thing about the national codes, even though they're national, they are minimums. And I'll use another emphasis here to prove my point, but looking at Rick's buildings from an insurance standpoint, we have ISO in town right now grading the city of Washington for our fire protection class. And there's a whole myriad of influences in that. But 2 things that affect this situation is the protection of the facility, water, and apparatus deployment, those 2 things. That's where your access road comes into play. Water, apparatus deployment. The code addresses fire lanes with hydrants, without hydrants. But in our analysis, what happened was in the past, we had developments, it always gets down to a question of cost. We had developments concerned about cost because when we had the national code as is, first go around, 20-foot no hydrants, 26 hydrants, there was always a question about the cost of running a water main and putting a hydrant where we needed that we could use it on the building in question. We had developers tell us the water main and the hydrants are costing more than the fire lane. So in the committee, and we went through a process with the Citizens Code Committee, which Mark sat on a couple cycles. The fire department looked at the codes, talked to other venues, other fire departments, and then rather than dictating hydrant totally locations and water mains on the proximity of buildings, which we still do because we have a hydrant count that comes into play, we just made all fire lanes 26 feet because the National Institute of Standards and Technology has come up with 22 tasks for fire departments to do in deployment when putting out a structure fire, particularly an unprotected structure fire where the attic's like this one is a lumber yard. There's 22 tasks, and the only one that puts the fire out is the one that puts water on it. So hydrants come into play no matter what the building, no matter what the complex, because that engine company has got to have water. But keep in mind, these are minimums. And how I can prove that is, you look at this particular building off the insurance grading schedule that we're going through right now, 6244 Highway 100, Rick's building. The minimum fire flow in Washington, the city of Washington, is 1,500 gallons a minute. You got to have 5 hydrants within 1,000 feet. Based on records that I'm looking at, I can't find a building that Rick owns out on High Street that has a less gallon per minute requirement than 2,250 gallons. This particular building we're talking about with the number of tenants it has, the insurance industry risk people have assigned a fire flow requirement of 2,250 gallons. Again, the city minimum is 1,500. So this is where the rubber meets the road and how we address the other issues that, in this case, what that tells me, 2,250 gallons a minute, we would be deploying at a minimum 2 engine companies and a ladder company on this fire. And that's where water and apparatus placement gets your 26 feet. It takes 18 feet to set up a ladder truck. An engine company, and now the code, the International Fire Code, the 26 feet was, if you're bringing water to the fire, you're leaving space for apparatus to come past a second piece of equipment, either an ambulance or something like that, to pick up an injured fireman, injured occupant, on the same paper. That's where the 26 comes from. Bringing in the water, which we do at every fire, apparatus deployment. Fire flow in this building, 2,250 gallons. So then you look at the 150-foot influence. The code says, because people get killed and there's been firefighters injured, which I served on that task force nationally, the International Association of Fire Chiefs Task Force, in reduction of line of duty injuries and deaths, they don't want you to have to back a fire apparatus any more than 150 feet. So that's why the turnaround provision came in many cycles ago. We didn't have it in the first one, we did. But there's actually diagrams in the National Code that depict approved turnarounds. The turnarounds, we've had this question, they're 20 feet. Well, that's because when you get into the turnaround, and we've got one at Rhine River that meets the code, that was done according to the code, very similar situation. where when you get into the 20 feet, you're in the turnaround, that's not the fire access code, which is why I put the definition for you of a fire access code in my letter in the packet. Because the definition by virtue of the International Fire Code for multiple vintages has been from fire station to fire deployment, that's a fire apparatus road. So that affects the same discussion that's going on with grades. Maximum grade, I got it in your letter, on a fire apparatus access road is 10%. There's been discussion with planning and zoning and people about changing grades on streets. We're opposed to changing grades on streets more than 10% because streets are fire apparatus access roads. And there's another whole myriad of influences that affect that. But the key thing is, in an unprotected wood frame, 253-foot building, fire flow requirement 2,250 GPM, we're talking a minimum 3 pieces of apparatus deploying to control fire in this building, and that's why we need the 26 feet.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I do believe the applicant does have a presentation too for you all, so. Sorry, Cameron, I need to give you that. Oops. Should be on.
Good afternoon, guys. My name is Cameron Lucan with Wunderlich Surveying Engineering. I'm representing the client here tonight, Rick Kleinheider, and we're just kind of dig into this here. So, talk a little about the history of this. Why we're here tonight is because of the local fire code modification. So let's talk about that. The existing building and parking has a 16-foot connector lane, as discussed tonight or this evening. Rick is proposing to add a building to it. That's the reason why we're back here in the permit process again. And what's occurred is that, as was alluded to earlier, the building was originally built per code, but because of the code change and whatnot, now we're discussing the 20 versus 26. And so we're going to talk a lot about the local versus the International Fire Code. So the International Fire Code was modified by the City of Washington. So the local code requirement is now 26 feet wide rather than 20 feet wide. So that's a local requirement. So why are we asking for the variance? You know, have we looked at other options? The lot line to the east restricts widening to the east, so Rick doesn't own the property to the east. Feldman's own that. Rick has talked to the Feldmans to see if they would be inclined to sell them any property or give them an easement. They are not entertaining either of those options, so that's not an option. And obviously there's an existing building that restricts widening to the west. So Rick's looked at trying to go east and he's looked at trying to go west. Is that on? Or?
Just keep,
Okay, keep
yeah,
going. Okay.
we'll get it figured out.
All right. And guys, if you have a question, just feel free to stop me at any time. So what's the purpose of this meeting tonight? The purpose is we want to discuss to obtain a local fire code modification for a 20-foot, to obtain a local fire code modification for a 20-foot wide lane per the International Fire Code. So like I said before, you'll see here in a little bit, or later on in the presentation, when you look at the fire code, the city, when they adopted it in 17, they just scratched out 20 and put 26. So I guess this is 2015 International Fire Code. Let me get to my sheet here so I can read that here real quick. I just want to point a few things out. As you can see, 503.2.1, width of not less than 20 feet. And as the chief alluded to, these are minimums, so that's the reason why the local fire code, they decided to make it 26 feet, I guess. I guess something's interesting here, the D103.1, the access road width of 20 feet, does not specifically account for the presence of a fire hydrant, but that's what so if you read down here, in many cases, a full 26-foot wide width may not be possible for a majority of the access road. And a possible solution is to simply widen the access road for a short distance to accommodate hydrant use. So the International Fire Code is alluding to, hey, 20-foot access road is okay, but as the chief alluded to, when you have a hydrant, it needs to be 26-foot wide. So that's what they're talking about in here. The D103.6.1, roads 20 to 26 feet wide. This section requires that parking be prohibited. 20 feet is the appropriate width needed for 2 average fire trucks to pass one another. That's down here in the bottom here. And so that's basically right out of the International Fire Code. So the next slide is going to be out of the fire code also, but when the local fire municipality wanted to alter it, they just scratched out 20 and made it 26 feet. And that's their right to do so. They have that right in the code under modifications. The local jurisdiction has the right to modify the International Fire Code. But I guess my point I'm trying to say is that the IFC identified 20 and they increased it to 26. Let's go on to the building itself. As was talked about, this is the existing building. This is the proposed building. And so as he alluded to, John said, there's 26 foot wide here, there's 45 over here, there's 26 foot wide here. So we've got access 26 foot wide or greater to 3 sides of the building, proposed and existing right now. So the proposed plan.
We're working on that.
The proposed plan is basically to make it, as was mentioned, there's a 16 foot wide pavement there right now. We want to make it 20 feet wide, which would match the International Fire Code. This is off again. I'll just speak a little bit louder. Okay. And so what the issue is obviously we've run up against is the required plan is 26 feet wide per the local jurisdiction. That's what we're going to further discuss. So basically what happens is the required plan today is going to make us cut into the existing structure. That's identified on the next slide. So that's what it looks like right now. That's on the east side of the building looking north towards 100. And so the required plan is basically going to cut, that would be, because of the grade change, let me flip back here one time. There's a grade change of from here to here, about 30 inches, I'd say, something like that. And so what's going to happen is in order to build that wall through there, Rick's got to cut this out and would have to put a retaining wall in here to make that work right. That way the transverse slope would not be greatly exceeded there. So basically what that looks like, that inside line would be the inside wall, this outside line would be the outside wall. So Rick's going to have to, if it's deemed that he has to be 26 feet wide, he's going to have to saw off that sidewalk. So we feel like that degrades the usability of the existing structure, meaning that there won't be, you have to cut all that sidewalk, no one can no longer walk around there or whatever. So it's going to degrade the existing structure. So I want to back up a minute, and I guess...
Could you back up to that last slide there? So at that gutter, is that a door right there, or what's right around that corner that we can't make out?
Yeah, so that's a
door right
into a unit.
Yeah, there's a unit there on the north side, and there's a door right around that. That's a porch, is what it is, but the door is about 10 feet to the left, something like that.
Yeah, there's a window and then the door. Yeah.
So when a person came out that door, they wouldn't be coming to the right, they'd be going straight out parallel with that line, yellow line?
Correct. They would not have to go to the east. Yeah, there is ingress to the north. You're right. Let's see if I had a picture of that.
Cameron, just to clarify, ingress and egress from the building is to the north.
Correct.
That's where all the ADA stalls,
Correct.
parking stalls are, right?
Yeah. Correct.
Okay.
Does that answer your question, sir?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Cameron?
Yes, sir.
What is the distance that's not in compliance from there to there? If what I'm hearing is you got to saw off the building to make 26 feet, but if you were to go to there over and over and over with your retaining wall, what would that pinch point be roughly?
Yeah, Kurt, there's my truck. It's 20 feet long. Rick, do you have any idea?
Approximately between 20 and 25 feet here.
So about 20 to 25 feet is the pinch point.
So you've got 26 feet all the way around the building, except 26 feet or 20 to 25 feet, you would be pinched down to about 20.
Correct. So if a truck was traveling through there, yeah, yes.
Without modifying the sidewalk,
Yeah, it might be
without sawing the
If
sidewalk.
it would pinch down to 20 feet, it would not touch the sidewalk.
Okay.
Any other questions right now?
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, though, but it's not just that it's a pinch point, but also a truck would have to get around that corner.
Yes, sir. And we'll show you that here in a minute. Yeah, I'll allude to that. Okay, so I guess just to back up, as John alluded to, when this was submitted, we had a conversation at site plan about this, and it was a little bit confusing to me, and I guess I'm going to use this example here to kind of help us through this, understand what we're talking about. So I guess I use this example here just of a building and a grid street pattern here, and I guess I'd like to explore, I just want, for conversation purposes, if there's a fire at this structure, where would the apparatus come in, where would it stage, and where would it leave? So where does it arrive to, where does it stage, and where does it leave?
Depends on where the fire is and where the hydrants are.
Okay, so just pick a point.
Which street is it?
You can't pick that from a fire perspective, you can't pick that. If you
Okay.
want to do that, then the whole building should be sprinkled.
Okay, so let's, just for argumentative purposes, let's pick G. Let's just say that's the spot to pick. I don't know.
What's the dimensions of the building?
That's 250 feet.
How much?
250 feet.
350?
250.
How much, here's the question, how much of the building do you want to burn off? That's the question. Because if the fire's in the center,
Yeah,
pick the side you want to save. If you're going to give limited access,
okay,
pick the side you want to save and the rest of it burns off because of the construction.
okay, so
And
pick
the
it.
accessibility, if you can't get trucks there to position, particularly aerial apparatus.
Right.
Get them in place.
Okay,
You pick the part of the building you want to burn off because you're going to save it one spot and you're going to burn the rest off.
okay, so let's, for argument,
Defensive approach at that point.
okay, so let's pick off, we'll just park the truck at G and we'll burn off the north side of the building. Fair to say?
Depends.
Okay, we'll just,
I'm not going to do a fire strategy and tackle.
Okay.
There's books on that.
okay, so we'll just do that for right now. So I guess this is an example that you got a grid street pattern and the fires in the building, we're going to burn off the north side, we're going to stage the apparatus at point G for argumented purposes, all right? So the fire's out. So the fire has burned out, we've got the truck staged at point G. The truck is going to probably leave through F or A or B, right? The truck is not going to back up because it's more than 250 feet, correct?
Depends on where the hydrants are and the backside of the building. We don't have enough information.
So, okay, so,
The
but,
building's 150 feet long, we may need backside coverage too.
well, it's 250, the building's 250 feet long. So if the truck is more than 150 feet, you're going to drive forward. So let's move on from there then. So I guess in this example, if the widths of all these roads leading to it was less than 26 feet, this is going to be an issue moving forward. It wouldn't meet your current fire code, right?
Yes.
All right. So this is a theoretical example. Let's turn it into real life. So this is Borza Grade School. So Borza Grade School is down here at 3rd, Cedar, and Elm. So here's a situation where it's on fire. The apparatus arrives. We're assuming it comes from the south. The fire goes out. The apparatus has to leave. So I guess what I'm saying is that why is this relevant? Why this is relevant is we're going to back all the way up to the site plan of this. So the apparatus is going to come in here and stage here, or it's going to come in and stage here, or stage over here. I guess it's not going to stage over here. I don't know, but this is the way it's coming in. The fire truck has to come this way, so it can stage, I guess, wherever it needs to. I guess let's move forward back to, so the fire's out. Let's move forward to this. So the argument here is what's happened is that this is what's striped out down there. So there's 19 foot, 19 foot, 19 foot, 20 feet, 21 feet, 23 feet. If you go out and measure those stripes right now, that's what that is. So basically what's happened is this is an existing building, and that building, if they come in to ask for a permit, couldn't be modified because there's no way out that's over 26 feet wide. I'll let you think about that. I'll come back to that. So this is an example. This is Cedar and West 3rd looking west. Here's the stripes on the road. Those are 19 feet. So what we did is that we took the ladder truck, we took the ladder 124, that's the big ladder truck the city has, and we looked at trying to put it where we're at. So this is an approved turnaround. In our meeting with the city, they said if we could get an approved turnaround in there per the NFPA, or per the IFC, that if we could prove that we could do that, that would be okay with them. The problem is there's not room on our lot to do that. So we started looking at, well, okay, what's the alternatives here? So what we did is that we looked at, okay, there's the ladder truck going in, backing up, coming back out. What is the length of travel of the front axle? Meaning that if I've got an option to drive through or turn a truck around on a T-head, what's the lesser sense of travel? So when you go forward, back, forward, that length of travel is 225 feet. So if a fire apparatus is getting ready to leave the fire and has got an option to go into an improved turnaround, it's 225 feet. Why does this matter? I'll show you. We'll show you what it looks like with the. So that's we modified this bus to meet the dimensions of ladder 124. So that's the ladder truck making the turn at 225, front axle to front axle. So what it looks like here is that the ladder truck starts here. The next slide is here. Next slide is there. So we looked at what that travel length is. That travel length, I believe it says 188. Is that right? Is that what it says? Or 180?
180.5.
180.5. So 180.5 versus 225. So what we're trying to say here, guys, is that, well, let's back up a little bit. This is an approved turnaround here. So if we were able to put an approved turnaround here, this is what it looks like superimposed. We don't have enough room to the north, takes out parking. Don't have enough room to the south, takes out the dumpster, also leaves our property. So we thought, well, if they're back to back, or, south to north, what's that length of travel? We can just drive through them. That's 180.5 feet. So we figured 180.5 feet was less than 225 feet, and we're driving forward. And as you can see, that's width is 20 feet. That's an approved turnaround. So what's that look like? This is the rig, their ladder truck driving through that. So what you're looking at driving through is this line right here is a 16-foot line. That line right there is the 20-foot line. That line right there is a 26-foot line. So if we back up, that ladder truck actually has got room to drive through on the existing pavement. Now, we're not proposing existing, we're proposing to go ahead and widen it to 20 feet. But it's got plenty of room to drive through there on 20 feet. So I guess where we're coming from is, let me back up another step here. As was mentioned, that this area right here is basically like a pinch point, meaning it's not the entire width of the travelway of the apparatus. A pinch point is similar to a gate, and I think in the code, I don't know what section it's in, but basically the gates can be 20 feet. I don't think the city of Washington modified that. I think it still says 20 feet. I could be wrong about that, or a gate. Do you know?
Gates.
Yeah, gates.
Gates have to be approved by the fire official.
Right.
So there's a lot more influence than just going to gate it by width.
Okay. So there again, I guess there's some discussion too about how wide a gate would be. But I guess in the code, it mentions, or in the fire code, it mentions about the gates. Let's see. Find it real quick.
It's D 103.5.
You found it. I need to find it now. D103.5. Yeah, right here. Thank you. D103. Yeah, D 103.5, as Jamie alluded to, where a single gate is provided, the gate width shall not be less than 20 feet. Where a fire apparatus road consists of a divided roadway, the gate width shall not be less than 12 feet. So I guess, the code even goes on to kind of mention that it's trying to address gates, and it says not less than 20 feet. And we're not proposing less than 20 feet, we're proposing 20 feet. And I guess the thing that's unique about this is that we're not asking to change the fire code. We're asking to change the local fire code, meaning that, in conclusion, the turnarounds will not fit on the property. The reason why we're having this discussion is because the access lane was modified from 20 to 26 based upon local requirements, not international fire code. The lot line to the east restricts widening to the east. There is 26-foot wide access to 3 sides of the building. And just something that was alluded to a while ago, I guess the final thing is that we want to widen the lane to the 20 foot per the international code. I guess something maybe you're all not aware of, because it's not evident on the plans, and Chief may not know it, but Rick is going to sprinkle the building.
Yeah, I decided we're going to sprinkle the building now.
So, I don't,
What, the existing building as well?
Right now, just the new part.
Okay, thank you.
John, on this, can you go back to the slide with the existing and proposed?
just tell him to stop, Kurt.
Where he's got his planned addition to the.
Oh, you want me,
to the
that might be me, Cameron.
beginning.
I've actually got that too. I guess, like I said, in this example here, basically, if we feel like that there's no difference in the example that we are standing here about than Borgia. If Borgia walks in and wants to ask for a permit to modify that building, we don't understand the difference. It seemed the same thing to me. So basically, you're telling us that we got to modify our structure. I'm saying to you, you got to modify those parking spaces because it doesn't meet 26 feet.
I guess where I was going with it, John, if this was two different property owners, and this building was being added on to, and these are two different owners, we wouldn't have the authority to tell one owner to modify. I mean, he's willing to modify the 16 to 20 because he is one owner, but if this was sold and as a, an add-on like a new town construction, would the new addition with sprinklers meet all current fire codes and access codes?
So you're saying if you had a lot line between blue and yellow?
Basically, had a
essentially.
zero lot line construction, which is common in big cities and municipalities, and actually with modern cost of land, it's going to be.
I'll jump in a second. If you just pretend like that, well, this was showed up to the property line, okay? And you had to have a fire truck pull in there to access this side. You would have to make what he had showed earlier, a way for that truck to come here, back in, turn around and leave. I've done it myself on Buddies in Union. And on the building, we gave them spots to drive the fire trucks in, turn around, leave. Existing building, the same thing. So I understand what you're saying, but I get their point because like we're here to interpret the code. Who's interpreting the code, right or wrong? Okay, now whether it's a financial hindrance to anybody or anything else. I'm looking at this as the plan I see submitted, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's not Cameron's, it's Dace's, correct?
Yeah.
So when he designed this site, he never bothered to check to see whether or not he was exceeding 150 feet per the code. He didn't bother to check to see if he had to widen it to 20 feet. This all came up when you submitted for permit, I assume, correct, Rick?
Brian, these plans are 10 years old.
No, I'm not talking about this existing.
No, just listen to me for a minute.
Okay.
I planned to do this 10 years ago, and with the economy going to I selected not to do it. I had these plans all approved 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Don Peters called me up and said, my permit's up here ready to go. This was approved just like this 10 years ago. And now I can't get it approved. What code has changed with this fire lane in the last 10 years? That's what I don't understand. I'm serious. This was approved 10 years ago already.
To answer that question, the 26-foot fire lane was changed.
Yeah,
The local amendment.
yeah. I know, like, Union Fire Department was 2009, and that was a 24-foot fire lane. Right when we permitted the building, right before we permitted it, they switched to 2015 code. We had to go through the plans, when we already had it approved. Well, I met with Mike Fink 3 years ago, went over the whole thing, had all the turnarounds worked out, fire lanes worked out with. Then we had to go back after we put it out for bid, and we already had permit. We was going for permit. We had to go back and widen all the lanes to 26 feet, because that's what the code was. That's what I'm telling you. I mean, that's why they're having a problem with it, because of the fire truck access. It talks about the 150 feet. When your building is, how long was the original building again?
153?
153.
There you go.
153. But back when you were permitting this thing, more likely that didn't exist. You know what I'm saying? The 150, I don't even know if the 150 feet max existed back then. Back then, you could have set this up and pulled the truck in there. There was no such thing in the code then. I don't know that for a fact until I would look and see what code they were under 10 years ago. Still, it could have been 99. I don't recall.
Yeah, I don't know.
But, you know, in that permit,
Going back to what Dace had done with this, that was a situation. These plans were originally drawn up 10 years ago, and now I'm coming back with them. And 10 years ago, I did have a permit for this already.
no, that says 2007, doesn't it?
Yes.
Okay, I thought it said 2017. Sorry, I thought it was a new plan and they added on to it.
Irregardless.
What's that?
Irregardless.
Irregardless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, the permit was 10 years ago, the last a year or two, and then it's up.
I would also add to that, sorry, Chairman.
Go ahead.
I would also add, I mean, my office, we put plans together for public projects that we essentially put on a shelf, because there's a lot of grant opportunities that you have shelf ready, correct? So shelf ready means that you've done an amount of work. Pick whatever that quantifying amount of work is. But if that job does not have funding available, you pull that off the shelf, you're still responsible to bring it up to the current code.
Yes.
So so essentially, in an apples-to-apples comparison with a public project, street project, whatever,
Yeah, but
you essentially have a
that's
shelf-ready project that you sat on to make it shelf-ready. You need to bring it up to the current code on an apples-to-apples comparison.
Yes.
Keep that.
Go ahead, Rick.
I don't.
This is an existing building that we're having problems with right there.
Well, I have an existing street that could be shelf-ready as well. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not totally apples to apples, but I just want to bring that up as an item. I think I would just add again that with the current layout, the code has a requirement that all portions of the building must be within 150 foot of essentially the apparatus. So once again, you have fire lane A to meet that requirement. You have fire lane B to meet that requirement. So there's that requirement. Then you also have a requirement that a fire truck cannot, and I say cannot per the code, be required to back more than 150 feet. So you have 150 to get to this point, 150 to get to this point. So there's a requirement that cannot back more than 150 feet. In doing so, you have to do two different things. Provide a fire apparatus access road to go around the building, or provide two turnarounds in this scenario. It's clear, you know.
And I guess that's what we're trying, that's why we're here, is because, like John mentioned, we're trying to get the truck turned around. And can you go back to the presentation where? Yeah, perfect. So I guess we just felt like if we could get these, basically in the meeting, we decided if we could build these, it would be fine. If we could build those, it would be fine, correct?
I did agree that if you could figure out a way to get two fire apparatus turnarounds.
Correct.
To approve turnarounds per Appendix D, I think it's D, I apologize. Yeah, D, that it would meet the code, we wouldn't even be in this position.
Correct.
So that's a design issue.
Correct.
That can be potentially achieved. Now, in that meeting, we're not going to sit there and design, obviously,
Right.
the plan, but I'm just saying,
Right.
yes, theoretically, if it could be done.
But I just want Brian to understand that he asked the question a while ago, he used the example of the buddies and all that. I guess, Brian, just understand that basically this would be approved, and because of the city of Washington's local modification from 26 to 20, this doesn't work, basically. That's what the argument's about. Meaning that you can turn the truck around here, but we can't drive through a 20-foot. We have to drive through a 26-foot.
The driving through component automatically defines it as a fire access road.
Which is unique to Washington.
I would
There's no
disagree.
denying, well, there's,
I
don't know about
There are
unique-
municipalities all over the United States that have amended this.
that, when I say I agree, I meant I agree that Washington
We have changed it.
has amended it.
Yes.
That is a fact.
However, it's not uncommon throughout the United States, this has changed, particularly with municipalities that run aerial apparatus for being able to pass through one past the other. City of Austin, Texas is 30 foot. Scott Stuckey's the fire marshal there. He was the guy that wrote a lot of this code with the ICC.
And I guess, Tim, I can appreciate that, I can. But I guess the reason why, if we had control of where to put the building at, we wouldn't be here. If we had control of the east property line, we wouldn't be here. If we had control of a lot of things, we wouldn't be here because we would just move the building. But there's a lot of things we don't have control over.
Well, ultimately, we're here to either say what you're doing is code compliant or not. Practically speaking, you're on the sidewalk, correct? You're not actually in the building, you're on a sidewalk with your 26?
But yeah, correct, but we don't know where the,
Yeah, to get 26, he's got to saw a sidewalk.
Hey, hey, Cameron, there you go, that's that photo.
Back up one.
Yeah.
so the footing of the building and the footing of the porch is most likely going to be an issue on that wall.
Is the eastern curb line, is that on the property line?
The back of the curb is the property line.
It is?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Yeah, I done talked to John Feldman about it.
Was it,
I guess I got a question for Chief Hommick. Chief, with that being an existing building, and the fact that his diagram shows you could get ladder truck 124 around there, knowing that, you know, the intent of the code to go 26 is because you said you wanted to be able to have the outriggers to
Yep.
get through. But if you were to look at it, that the pinch point would just be to get trucks through there, you know, would you feel that your department would be able to get trucks around there at the end of a fire, you know, pull in on both sides, fight the fire, and then drive on around?
Well, in
And
site review,
if you would modify it to 20 feet.
yeah, in the several meetings that we had, Kurt, with Cameron and Rick, we've looked at that, and if you start deviating from 26, you know, where does it stop, number one? But the key thing about that on the east end of this building here is if you go 20 feet, you don't have the standard footage to deploy. There's a door on there that gives you access to the salons. There's 5 or 7 occupants, how many? How many tenants you got in that building? 7. Okay, there's 7 units to deal with a common attic. So if you narrow it, you're reducing the amount of space you have to deploy. That's the big thing, is being able to deploy, get hose lines off, get a ladder up. You can't do that. 26 we found, particularly you got to get it water to it. We now follow industry standard pretty much, and we carry 5-inch hose. We go to a hydrant, and that's another reason for our 26-foot local change, is we have found that to be proven success because we lay 5-inch lines to hydrants. You're closing the street where the line lays. So we require hydrants now to be on the same side as the risk if we can, so that we can lay the line appropriately to allow EMS, an ambulance, somebody to drive by, and allow you to deploy, either an engine company or a ladder. And just to talk about Cameron's example, Borgia Grade School. Think to yourself, what do you think, and I don't think it's a fair comparison at all. It's been built, I graduated from that school, it's 100 years ago. But Borgia Grade School, fire flow requirement by the insurance industry, current risk analysis, 1,500 gallons a minute. What did I tell you this building was? Without the addition, 2,250. We're talking major deployment, you know, and you guys that are involved in construction and contractors, you need to look for no further than my application of the 26 feet. The local application, which makes sense, has been proven 2 code cycles. We've put them in operations. 2 code cycles at schools and other occupancies with no problem. We've had a fire, we had a working house fire last year. 222 Stafford Street, 30-foot street, and they want to park on one side. We could not, with one parking on one side on a 30-foot street, we had to put apparatus on the curb on the other side of the street to deploy. We knocked that fire in the first 10 minutes, but we laid 5-inch lines. We deployed, and we had EMS on the scene. So we're talking practicality for local conditions, but everybody's got to understand these codes evolve over time, and there's different vintages. But if you research it and look back at the code vintages that I've been involved in for the last 37 years as fire chief, the fire lane width has increased on every vintage. We started out at 18.
Right.
Went to 20.
And I guess my question, getting back to my question, Bill, is, other than you're worried about stepping on precedent, your code on national level is 20 feet. You've asked to be 26, which the city concurred and increased it to 26. He can get fire trucks to both sides of this building, but instead of trying to build a turnaround, he's asking to build a 20-foot drive-through to get from the one point to fight the fire to get to the other fight the fire.
Yeah, well, and then, like I said, if you go...
Again, this wouldn't be something that I would see that the city would allow. I think this is just an existing building that he's trying to add on to. And then you are going to sprinkler the new part?
Yeah, well, I'm just saying in the old part of the building, which is unprotected, you know, you're going to add to that 2250 when you put the other building on, even if it's sprinklered. And sprinklers is not necessarily a generally accepted waiver for fire access changes. Standpipes is definitely is, and we applied that with the building on 12th Street. That's a sprinkler building. Because of a rock bluff, they could not put fire lanes all the way around it. They followed the code, we added standpipes. Because when you get a standpipe, you got to remember, in a sprinkler building, and this is, I don't want to take a lot of time, but when you do a sprinkler building, you still have two considerations. An engine company still has to come there and operate, because you do a sprinkler building, you get a calculation from the engineers on the fire flow required for the sprinkler system. With every sprinkler system calculation, there's another fire allowance for a hose line, fire company used by the fire company, a hose line allowance, meaning you got to take, same as before, you have to deploy from an engine company, take a hose from a fire truck, and finish putting the fire out that the sprinkler knocked down. 20 feet does not give you room to deploy on the east end of this building. We're just trying to be consistent. Apply the code consistently across all board, 2 code cycles.
I would also...
And there are options. There's turnarounds, there's standpipes, there's all kinds of things you can do that other people have done.
I would also add, Kirk, there is no definition for a fire drive-through. You know, once you drive, the action of driving through essentially makes it a fire access road. So just keep that in mind. I mean, not to turn back what you said, but
I guess another clarification, like if this was a brand-new structure, we wouldn't even be having this conversation.
Correct.
Because they'd be doing 26 feet. Now, I understand we got an existing condition that we're trying to work out, but I understand the Kleinheider's position. You know, they got an existing building. 10 years ago, they turned this in with this proposed addition. It was fine then. Of course, the code has changed, and we all know we got to appeal by the new codes. And then secondly, you know, you got to look at the fire department and the city stance is where they've adopted these codes and modify them to make firefighters' lives safer when they're out there and to protect their equipment. So my question is, have you looked at trying to do anything a little bit different yet, as far as trying to make a turnaround at all?
Yeah, I mean, we tried several things there.
Yeah.
Hey, I got a question.
We did. Yeah.
What are you talking, when you say standpipes, what do you mean by that?
That's extra piping on a sprinkler system, whatever you hook a hose direct. We had the first place in town that had it, because of their location occupancy, even under the old code was KC Hall. St. Washington's got standpipe. We've enforced that all over town, new buildings and old. That's ultimately, but it's an acceptable approach to fire access road modifications, small modifications. Like I said, we did it on 12th Street. You know, the other, we talked about it, you guys, there's been a number of discussions at site review, but another thing was talked about that would influence the review, and we didn't spend much time on it. But you could, instead of connecting this building to the old building, is put a 26-foot fire lane and separation between the two buildings, 26-foot fire lane between, and you still meet, the old can back up to the new 26 feet, and whatever. We would, there's other options to look at there. By moving the new addition instead of connecting it,
Oh,
moving it west.
I do want to connect it. I do want to
Okay, I'm just saying,
I want one building up there when I get done.
I'm just saying, there's been a long dialogue to get us this far.
I would also add, we did have a discussion with the applicant that, once again, you go back to if you have a dead-end fire line, you have to have an approved fire access turnaround. Well, you could look at, one approved fire access turnaround would be a hammerhead. So essentially, a hammerhead construction, it's 20-foot wide on the actual hammer portion itself. It is, and correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it's 60 foot from the center line, which gets you to a location somewhere near this island, somewhere through here, okay? And it would also, though, require some additional pavement over here, because essentially your truck could come in here, park here, and then 150 would overlap somewhere here. So you'd have to have a hammerhead on this side, a hammerhead at this location, and you would meet the code. So there has been discussion about different options, and I know Cameron even hit on it. By making this 26-foot, you would require a retaining wall. Well, quite frankly, a retaining wall is a design feature that does cost money, and it would go over top, maybe a footing of the building. I don't know if we can definitively say that, but potentially. But there are ways to adhere to that, and we are here to, what can't we address by something proposed here? What cannot be done? And I think that's very important that we all understand that. The code is here for a reason.
To answer your question, I forgot who asked him, Brian. I think Brian maybe asked it. Yeah, we looked at every type of turnaround that we could possibly come up with.
I understand. I got to look at it and figure it out. That's why I asked the question. I'm not going to sit here and try to figure it out. If you guys if you already beat it, that's fine.
Well,
but the other option is, okay, I understand money, and I understand you're trying to not spend money on something you're going to get zero rent out of. But the 09 code, the access lane was 24 feet. Right now, the city of Washington's changed it to 26 feet. Obviously, the code minimum is 20 feet, but they have every right, like you said, Cameron, they can change the code wherever they want. I'm just shooting from the hip. It looks like if you did the retaining wall and you had to do some underpinning on the foundation, you could get a retaining wall shoved up right against the building and maximize that little pinch point to maybe 24 feet or something. I know it's going to cost Rick and Donna the money they didn't want to spend, but is there a compromise here that you guys can look at to try to give them the maximum area, other than, if it's my money, I understand I'd be doing the same argument you're doing, but.
Yeah, I think Kurt alluded to it earlier, was the Kleinheiners are more than willing to give them 26 feet as far north as we possibly can, to where it gets pinched down to like, okay, let's try not to take the sidewalk out. And let's go, can you flip back to?
Oh, yeah, back to yours, sorry.
Let me get forward here so we can see what we're talking about. Let me back this up a little bit. So to answer your question, Brian, if the fire department wants 26 feet back in here, there's no problem giving it further north. But at some point, where it gets pinched to that sidewalk, where it starts affecting. So if we had to go to 26 feet, it's over in here, and Rick would have a problem with that.
So you'd be willing, Rick, to put a retaining wall to get the fire department 26 feet up until a point
Right there, yeah.
at which you then just neck down 20 feet
Yeah.
for like 20
cut
feet,
around that
and then you'd still be
sidewalk,
26.
It should be 20 feet there, yeah.
So you could get them 26 all the way up to a point.
And there's going to be
Now, can
a
that sidewalk-
portion in there about 20 to 25 feet that it will shrink down to 20 feet and then come back again.
Now, my question is, if you cut that sidewalk off, that part that's sticking, yeah, there you go. If you were able to cut some of that off, as long as the people if they were obviously, thinking of public safety, the people getting out, you said earlier, their egress is to the north.
Yeah, egress
Get out, if the building's on fire, you want to be able to get them out of the building, so they're going to go north out the front.
Yeah, there is no, I do not believe, there's not a door on the east side of the building.
Well,
Is there one? I apologize.
Side too.
Sorry, Chief.
Back farther.
There is a door on the east side of the building, just so we're clear.
But is it a city requirement that the sidewalk go all the way around the building?
No, there would be no,
There's no city code requirement.
not that I'm aware of.
And I'm not saying you'd cut it as where your yellow line is, but if you cut 3 feet off the corner of that and wrapped your retaining wall around to where, like what Brian's alluding to, you're 26 feet, and then maybe you're a pinch point of 24, which, again, I know what you're saying about the gate. You're saying you're not putting a gate, but in theory, if you had a gate there, you would have a pinch point in a fire access.
I would also add that the last gate, I believe, that's been approved in the city was 26 feet behind Rhine River.
Right.
It was a 26-foot gate on a 26-foot
Again,
fire.
like Brian's saying, is there a way you guys can work this out to achieve what the fire department wants? The fire department wants to be able to get their trucks around your building, and I fully understand that.
With the yellow line there, that's gonna be the full 26 feet. That retaining wall is gonna get so close to my building, I'm worried about getting into the footings of it, and I don't wanna compromise the building by getting so close to it. You know, if we can back off of that thing, say that's the 26, get away from that building about 3 feet to get away from the footings, I think something like that would be acceptable on our part.
Go back to the site plan a minute, please.
Gotcha.
Cameron's site plan.
Oh, okay.
Oh, sorry.
Just as easy to use yours, sorry.
Which one do you want to see, Brian? That one
Right
or?
here. The other one you had, was the one where you had the radius, the yellow line?
Oops, sorry.
Okay.
Oh, no, let me think here, let me think. Sorry, let me go forward, next forward. That's
There you go.
that's the 20-foot.
That's a 20-foot. So, okay, you got this, if here's your sidewalk, if you got more than 26 feet here, if you was to give the fire department maximum area of 26 feet.
To the point of the sidewalk.
Yeah, and so then they got room to set their truck up, and still somebody can get around them. Obviously, you can't get 2 trucks, well, the code says you can, but for these guys, they'd rather have 26 feet. If you could minimize the choke point, and like I said, I understand you don't want to, you're worried about your footings, but you can get that and do it it's doable,
Yeah.
all the time. It's not fun, it's not cheap, but you can do it, but you can still probably get, even if you were to build a retaining wall right here, you got that, I don't know, to me.
Yeah, that's what I was asking Bill, is
Oh, I'm sorry, that's the buildings. I'm
Bill,
sorry,
if they
this
were
is
able
the
to,
sidewalk.
if they put the retaining wall up against the building and got you 26 feet all the way around the building, except for this little spot right here where they're tight, and even if they cut this off to get what you can, but if you got 24, 22, or an area from, say, here to that second door, would that be sufficient to get you 26, because you can get your truck through, obviously, down a 20-foot lane? Would you be okay with that?
I'd like
This
to,
is your building corners, that's 26 foot right there.
I'd like to know what Chief thinks about this compromise.
Well, let me give you my position as a fire official. It gets into liability as well. And my key thing is, because as a citizen, I sometimes get disgruntled with it too, is consistent application of the code. You gotta have to understand what the fire code. I cannot change the fire code any more than Ed Menifee can change the speed limit out on the street. The ordinance is the ordinance. So the next thing to me is consistent application. Rick wants 22 feet today, Joe wants 21 feet tomorrow, Pete wants 20 Thursday. The application code and compliance is 26 feet. And that's where I gotta say, now y'all can make whatever decision within your purview to do whatever you gotta do, but I cannot change the code. 26 is compliance. I know from reality and experience, 26 works. That's all I can tell you. And I knew it was gonna be a challenge when we did it, when we went to the Citizens Committee, the Code Committee and the Council, and explained and changed it to 26, but it was the right thing to do. So I'm standing behind the 26. Any modifications is beyond me.
Well, I'm gonna say something. I understand you're not gonna concede, because you're gonna, and I understand that's what you should be. You should be sticking to your 26 feet. And it's our job to decide whose best interpretation of the code. I'm gonna suggest something and see how you guys feel. Would you be willing to modify the site plan to show us how wide of an access you can get, how much area you can do your 26 foot, and then give us a plan showing how much you're choking it down, 22 feet, 24 feet, give us a distance, show us some information, and then we can have another meeting, discuss it, and then we can say, okay, we think you guys have done your job, and we'll let you go, or we're gonna say, nah, I think we're gonna have to side with the city. I mean, I think that's the only thing we can do. If we gotta do a yes or no, We can, but that's my suggestion. I'll let you, everybody else thinks.
I have a question for John. Wouldn't that be a variance ultimately? If there was a site plan that deviated from?
I mean, no, ultimately,
No.
we are in the correct venue to discuss this, so it would be the decision of this board.
Well, it sounded like you're interested in looking into the standpipe alternative also. No?
Ask for a variance.
That's where I'm at.
No, that's
This is a thumbs up or thumbs down.
Well, I guess in the spirit of cooperation, if, to follow what Brian, and I concur with Brian, is if you could take the existing site plan, show us how you can get us as much of the 26-foot drive lane from there, and show the fire department and chief that you meet, whether that's 89% or of the 100% circle, whatever that distance is, and then you say, then we're going to pinch down to 22 feet for 16 feet, and then we're back up to 26 feet. Then they would have a look at it. I guess the other side of that coin is, and I fully understand your position, Bill, that, you're saying we set the code, we don't vary. That if I was in your shoes, I wouldn't be any different. However, as we sit today, we have a businessman from Washington who is sitting on a 26-foot or a 16-foot fire lane, and he's willing to invest in our town and build a building, and he's trying to work with, sounds like the city and the department, because right now we sit, if we don't do anything, if you throw these plans in the trash, we got a 16-foot drive lane. So I would like to see us get something done here to get us closer to code. Because you said, Rick, you built this in '03, which was, according to my notes, Bill, was it 3 codes ago? Yeah. So, we can get from 16 to 98% 26, and we're neck down to 22 for 20 feet. To me, we've all won there. But you're the president of this board.
That's what I'm suggesting.
If you want a motion on that, that would, I don't know if it's within our authority or if we should meet in the back room and discuss it, but I'm willing.
We were told we can't meet in the back room.
That cannot happen.
We used to get to meet in private and discuss things in the back room, but the lawyer said we can't.
Okay, well, but if you guys want to.
Thank you.
If you guys want to.
Helps us all.
Talk it over amongst yourselves and either table it or whatever, but. Put a site plan together that like basically what Brian said, I concur with Brian.
So let me ask you this on timing. Because I know Rick's sitting there thinking about time, probably is what he's sitting there thinking about. Yeah. How quickly can we meet again, I guess is the question.
We meet, she calls us up on a spur of the moment. This is the fastest meeting board going.
That's right. We don't have a schedule.
You're welcome.
Previously, we have had to schedule because we didn't get a quorum, and the attorney said that we did not have to repost it in the paper, so I can check with him in the morning. If he's not going to make us repost it, we could meet as soon as you guys are all available. If it has to be reposted, it'll be 2 weeks in the paper, and then we could meet after that.
I would think we would just guess we wouldn't have to, because we didn't have to the last time we didn't have the quorum. So I would think this is just I would assume it's a continuation of the meeting.
That's correct.
We'll talk tomorrow just to explore options, make sure everybody knows what's going on, for sure. But I don't know if.
My opinion, if you guys can work something out and show the department what you can do, you can come with a more detailed plan, I would think we can meet back here in a week and give you a yes, no.
I would agree with that.
Would that be okay, Brian?
Yeah, that's fine. I just say.
Bring something back and show as much as we can to stay away from the structure of the building and give as much as we can as far as the fire lane. I'm all for that.
Okay.
Rick, is this something new too, just for the record? Did I hear you say that you are going to sprinkler the new phase, and that was not on the...
Sprinkler the new phase.
That was not in the 07...
I'm talking to a tenant already, and that tenant, it really needs to be sprinkled.
And the 07 plan you had was not sprinkler, so you are going to upgrade the
that's right.
sprinklers. So the building will be fully sprinkled.
Just the addition, he said.
The new piece. And then you're going to get with Bill on the standpipe that Bill mentioned, explore that also? Okay.
And that interface between building, the existing building and a new building would be fire rated, I would assume as well. Whatever.
I think it's a 2-hour firewall in there.
Well, that's not ours. That's between them.
And just for the record, I would ask that in the drawings, that's going to be reviewed, that we add the provisions under 503 showing angle of departure and approach for fire apparatus so that we know it fits the turning radiuses for our specific trucks. And that's in the national code where the local fire department has complete control over angle of departure and approach because different people buy different trucks. But we've been buying the same brand for 20-plus years, so.
We
And
do
the
have-
building department has our radiuses on file.
There are streets the fire department cannot access in this town. We will destroy trucks in the city.
So what you basically requested if Cameron, if you can get a hold of their template, instead of driving the bus, the modified bus, you want to pop a template on there?
Yeah, I mean, that was modified.
Yeah, he modified the bus to make it too lighter.
Our fire
Cannot.
Okay. Well, I think what was, in Chief, weren't you asking if we could just see the template, or what did you, I mean, I misunderstood your question.
Right now.
You were asking about, you wanted to see that you could make your turns.
Make sure that the
Fire truck,
turns in the east end.
no, I know.
Meet the angle of departure requirement.
One fire
Okay.
truck cannot circle around that, is what you.
But I know, don't you guys have like templates on file or something that you can?
Yeah, we should,
Building inspector has
I've
them.
not personally seen them, but we do have them.
We buy a
We
new
could get
truck,
them.
they get the new radiuses and everything.
Okay. I guess, Cameron, I understand you modified it and made it work, but probably for his purpose, than them to show a
It's the
template.
specific, or vice versa. You could provide me with the information and we could check what he used.
Right.
Okay, whatever.
Same way.
Same way, okay.
Okay. Well, do you need a motion?
Yeah, I mean, if you guys are fine with it, I'll make a motion to suspend this meeting and.
Suspend it, continue it till next week?
I mean, we can meet again in a week.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well,
Unless Jamie and John talks to the attorney and says no, we can schedule, as far as I'm concerned, same day next week at 5 o'clock, as far as I'm concerned. Now, unless Mark says we can't.
I'm willing to explore the option.
I'll drop what I'm doing, whatever we got to do.
Is everybody okay with that? Yeah. Everybody good?
All right.
Okay, I need a motion to adjourn this meeting.
I'm gonna second your motion.
Okay.
You made the motion.
I made a motion myself. All in favor? Let's go.
I'll second your motion. All in favor, aye.
Thank you all.
Thanks, guys.
Okay.
all right, Cameron, here you go. Get yours. Think you're good here. There you go, sir. All right, you all have a nice evening. That's there. What happened? What happened? Still in the meeting.